Here again.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Gary.
Hey, Gary, if you'd like to introduce your wife, you would.
Gary.
I brought my better half tonight. This is my wife, Candy.
Hi, Candy.
Welcome, Candy. Thanks for coming.
Hi.
Candy, that's Chuck in the box. When Rich said that we had to do a presentation for this, and he said that the topic is up to you, then I wanted to do it on something with students involved. And I think the most important thing that maybe you're looking for is student achievement, improving student achievement. So that's kind of the topic that I selected, and it's going to be about using data to improve student achievement. Now, what I would like to do is say, okay, I'm going to use Algonac data that I have, and what you see up here on the screen is MEP scores of your school district, and I got these from your ISD. It was easy to do. I actually talked to Superintendent DeGros, and when I did, he was reading off these MEP scores, where Algonac ranks on all of these different areas, and I thought, okay, I'm hearing these numbers, but I'm hearing them over the phone, and I want to see them. So I had to send them to me. He sent them to me. Here they are. And as I look at these numbers, I say, okay, it looks like we're doing really well in certain grade levels here. You can see that the 4th grade is doing really well. We can see that the 7th grade is doing really well, and the 8th grade extremely well compared to the other schools in the RESA. Now these are ranked with 8 schools. I'm assuming that Cross-Lex is not really in your RESA, so they weren't included in this. Okay? I know there was some, they kind of belong within, they kind of don't belong, so that's, they're not in there. And so I asked this question, is the middle of the pack, which is, you know, kind of where we are, for the most part, is that good enough? And what I heard last week when I was here is that it's not good enough for Algonac. You want your students to be at the top. And so that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about next. So what do we need to do? And what I've done here is I've outlined a little process for improvement in using formative assessments and progress monitoring. Well, yeah, Brian was right. I do need my glasses here. So using data to make decisions. What can we find out by using data to make decisions? Well, we can find out who needs help. We can find out what type of help they need. And when do they need help? Now, I'm going to use a case study from my Osable schools to kind of illustrate the point that I want to make here. We recently did a DRA assessment. It's a reading assessment, developmental reading assessment. It's a program from Pearson, and our K2 students were given this assessment, and this was in late January. And when we got together to look at the data, here's what we found out. Our students could read fluently. They had strong reading skills. You know, if they were to come in and read a book to you, you'd say, these kids are good readers. They have it down. But what we found out was their reading comprehension was really lacking. So we had an issue that we had to deal with. And so we had a decision to make. And we take a look at this chart here, which basically, we use Data Director just like this school district does. This is our data warehouse. Our elementary teachers have multiple data points. What you see in this chart over here is just the first 3 columns. There's probably 12 columns to the right that were truncated, but I don't need that to make the point that I need to make, because I'm making it with that very first column, the DRA Winter Reading Assessment. And if you take a look at that, what you'll see is that about half of our students in grade 1, which is just the first grade example, we're not up to grade level in reading comprehension. That's a big problem. We need to address that. So who needs the help? We look at the chart. I took every student name off. I just put student 1, student 2, student 3. But what do they need help in? Well, reading comprehension. We already determined that. And when did they need it? Well, I feel that we need it now. They need that help immediately. So what do? We don't want to wait. Early intervention is the best intervention. So what did we do? We called for immediate professional development. We had a professional development half a day scheduled about 3 weeks out, but was that going to be soon enough to address our need? I didn't feel like it was, and so and plus we already had things scheduled for that day. So what I did is I said, you know what? We're going to call in one of our literacy experts from our ISD, and they're going to go and they're going to model lessons for our K2 staff. So I had this person go into every grade level, modeled retelling lessons so that our teachers would know what they need to teach. We used a tool called the ShapeGo map, which is the tool that they use to have the students describe what they've read and things like that. How did we make sure that that was really happening? Well, we did classroom walkthroughs, observations, and I can tell you that when we went into those classrooms, it was very evident that the teachers were following what they needed to based on that professional development they received. All of the teachers were, with fidelity, teaching what they needed to teach. And then, of course, reassessments, and we're not quite to the point where we're doing the reassessments yet, but when we do, I'm going to expect to see results. The teachers need to be held accountable for, the achievement of their students. We identified the area that they needed help in. We called in the experts to provide professional development that was needed, and now it's up to them to make sure that those kids get what they need. They have the tools in place, they've had the training, and now we're following up, and we're going to check those kids again, and I'm sure that we're going to see improvement. A little summary here. Data needs to be utilized to drive instruction to improve student achievement. You guys have a lot of, I've looked, I know you have a lot of good assessments in place. I know that you guys do DRA. I know that you guys do DIBELS and other assessments like that. I know you use Data Director, and I know it can probably be utilized a little bit better at the elementary level from what I hear from staff members and even an elementary principal, that there's more we can do. Maybe a little more training needs to be had, but I think we can make improvements there. Intervention needs to occur as soon as possible. Our kids deserve the best, and I don't see any reason to wait. If it costs a little extra money to bring somebody in to address a need, I think it's valuable to do that. The cost for us was not the person coming from the ISD. The cost for us was to provide subs so that the training could take place during the school day when it was needed. And I thought that was well worth it. It's very important that your assessments, your data, your curriculum, and instruction are all properly aligned. When they're all properly aligned, you have a greater chance for success. And like I've said here a few times, professional development sometimes can't wait. You can plan those days. You get 5 days a year for PD or whatever. Sometimes school districts have early release. But there's some things that happen in between that you need to address right away, and I think it's important to do that. And we all need to work together with the resources we have to make our students the best students that they can be. I don't want to see Algonac in the middle of the pack in our ISD or our RESA. I would like to see Algonac students at the top, and I know you would too, because I heard that from you last week when I was here. So that would be my goal, is to get our kids to the top. This is just one example. I didn't have a lot of time to talk about curriculum last week, but I wanted to get more on it now, so that's why I chose this topic. Do you have any questions about this?
Very good.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. That doesn't mean I don't have questions.
Yeah, back in the room, Rick said, you know, you have to make this 10 minutes or less, because they do have a lot of questions. I know that usually I get water up here. I don't have water today, though. Probably gonna need that.
Because Rich wasn't doing his job right.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming again, and question number one is, how do you determine when a particular issue requires your personal attention or should be delegated to someone?
Well, typically, I start with the someone else, because we employ people to do a job. And if it's their job to handle bus discipline, for example, I would expect that they do that. If they're having problems with that, and it does rise to my level, you know, I want to make sure they went through the proper channels before it got to me. I mean, if I'm going to do the bus discipline, for example, why do I have this person in this position? So things need to go through the proper channel. When it does, and it still reaches my level, I'm happy to deal with it. You know, most of the time, I do the same thing that the other supervisor has done. You know, there's very few times when I had to overturn a decision that was made at a lower level. But I do have expectations that people do their job, or why do I need them?
Gary, can you give us an example of your most innovative initiative for the last 5 years? How did you generate that idea, and then how did you implement it?
Okay. Well, I have a couple, but maybe one I want to share was I wanted to provide some music opportunities for our students, and because we did cut band before I became superintendent, so they didn't have that. So, but we did have teachers that had musical talent. I had a former music teacher that's teaching 5th grade now, and I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can get some company to give our schools some guitars. So I kind of looked for grants for guitars. Didn't really see anything that said, you know, apply for this grant for guitars. So I ended up calling guitar companies and saying, hey, do you have any opportunities to get guitars into our school? And Gibson Corporation, I think they were in Nashville, Tennessee. I contacted them. They had a person, and I said, you know, this is our situation. I would like to get guitars in our classroom, in the hands of our kids. And so that happened. We actually got 30 guitars, and they started using them at the end of the day. The last hour of the day, they would do some guitar training, and the kids perform at Christmas concerts and things like that. They're not great, but you know, they strum a few chords. So that's one innovation. Others, technology-wise, our school is, you know, equipped not with a one-to-one initiative, but we do have technology in all of the elementary classrooms. We have smart boards available, projectors. We have the document cams. We do have 5 iPads in every elementary classroom, and we have a cart for the upper elementary that's shared by 6 teachers, and a cart for the lower elementary shared by 6 teachers. At the high school level, some of the innovative things that we've done is we've partnered with other school districts and industry in our area to provide vocational opportunities for our students. The other school in our county is Fairview area schools. We partnered with Fairview and our Economic Development Council and our community college, which is Kirtland, and we've created an entity called MyFair, and it provides a project-based vocational opportunity for our students. They create a product, they have opportunities to market that. For example, they'll make something out of wood or something like that and market that That's a partnership with another school district in our community, and it reaches a need. As a matter of fact, I had the Economic Development Council chairperson in my office here a few weeks ago, and he was talking about, we need to do something in metals instead of just woods. And we said, well, we do a lot with metals in our school already. What do you have in mind? He said, well, I need to, we have tool makers in our community, because one of the things about our area is that automotive tubing is very prevalent business. We have two manufacturing firms who do tubing for automobiles, brake lines, and things like that. And he wanted some help from younger people to, build machinery to bend tubes or whatever, cut tubes. And I said, well, we have these things in place, but they just need to get out to the businesses. So we're going to start actually taking our students, once they reach the top of the metal area in our school, to go out and work in business. And we already have one student out doing that now. But, so those are some of the innovative things I guess I've done, or I should say I've done, but we've done in our district and under my leadership.
Okay, Gary, I never have just one little question. So I'm gonna go through this whole question, and then if you need me to go
Do
back.
I need to take notes on it?
You might want to.
Different parts here.
Okay, here you go. How do you assess and measure teacher performance? Describe a great teacher and a quality classroom in your eyes. How will you handle teachers that do not meet the standard? And what is the role of the building administrator in this assessment? Simple one.
It is simple. Teacher evaluation is, in the forefront right now for schools. I actually last week completed my 6 days of training in the 5D Plus teacher evaluation system. That's one of the systems that were recommended by the council here. The RFP from the state is, I don't know if it's actually gone out yet, but it's likely to be, I think it's likely to be chosen. Our general ed director from our ISD did a little study of when other states put these evaluation systems out for bid. 5D Plus came back as the one that's typically the low bid. And if I know Michigan, the one with the low bid is the one they're going to say schools ought to use. Plus, as an ISD, all of the schools looked at it and said, you know what? Even if it's not chosen, we think this would be the best one, so this is the one we're going to use. So I've had the training in that. And that is a very good teacher evaluation program or system. And I believe that with that, if it's administered properly, teachers will improve. So that's step one. You get the good system in place, and you start using it. You train the people who are going to be the evaluators, which I've gone through, our high school principal's gone through. We're going to be certified in 5D Plus teacher evaluation. A great teacher would be a teacher that engages their students, has a compassion for their kids, and a compassion for their kids' learning. And that's what I want to see. I don't want to walk into a classroom and see a teacher-directed lesson. I want to walk into a classroom and I would like to see the students engaged. The locus of the control should be on the students. That's the goal. Students in charge of their learning and taking responsibility for it. I know there was another piece here too. If they're not meeting the standards that they need to meet, they need to be put on a plan. I have one teacher that's on a plan right now. Last year, I had to release someone who had some performance issues. So, do I hold my staff accountable? Yes, I do. And I expect my building principals to do the same. Now, do I hold my building principals accountable? One of the things with the new evaluation system and the legislation is that I'm going to be evaluated as a superintendent on how my principals perform their evaluations. And I evaluate my principals on how they do their evaluations. So, it's all linked together here.
Part of Beth's question dealt with, and she said, describe a great teacher and a quality classroom.
A quality classroom would be where students are on task, engaged in their learning, they're being taught the proper curriculum, and they're meeting the standards that need to be made. They're meeting, well, they're passing the meter test, if you wanna put it like that. Let's say we're on, they're making the appropriate progress and growth in the classroom.
Gary, given the current economic conditions, what percentage of total revenue do you think a district should hold in its fund balance? There's a couple of questions, I'll let you answer that first.
Okay. Here's the way I look at that. Different districts have different needs. And for one thing, I'm not a big proponent of holding a large fund balance just to hold it, if it's not necessary. If we need to spend money on student programs to benefit the current students that we have, I'm not opposed to that. Now, I'm a finance guy. I'm one of only 11 superintendents in the state of Michigan that is certified through MSBO with Chief Financial Officer certification. So I kind of know this topic. Our school district has decided that a safe fund balance would be about 7 or 8%. And I'm going to tell you why. One, we have summer taxes. So typically, when we collect those taxes, we don't have to borrow. Two, we have two accounts that are not our general fund accounts, but we have a capital projects fund from 2005 that has a little bit of money left over. We also have a sinking fund that has a little bit of money left over. So if we would have a boiler that broke down or something like that, we wouldn't have to dip into our general fund to repair that. So as a school board and as a district, we made the decision that, okay, we can get by with 7 or 8%. Now, some districts, it might be 15%, if it causes you not to go out and borrow, or, you have to address emergencies that come up. You wanna have that number. I can tell you what's worked for us, and that's why.
Second part, at what point do you say, this is enough of a rainy day fund, we need to invest everything we have in improving achievement and the education experience?
And I think we've kind of done that,
Yeah.
so, we used to have a fund balance that was about 13, 14, even 16, 17% here. This is probably about 7 years ago. It's dwindled to, this year was 9%. I'm projecting it's gonna be about 8% at the end of this year. We're at the point almost where we have to say, now we need a balanced budget. We can't dip into it any longer. But like I said earlier, I'm not a proponent of just having a large fund balance just to have it, to say, that looks good that we have, 15, 20%. If I think I'm ripping off the current students I have with a good education, I don't think I have a good education.
Gary, Chuck here. I have a 3-part question. I'll read the whole thing and then we can go back if you like. What specific data resources do you use to make decisions regarding finance? And then the same question regarding curriculum. And then finally, when you sit down to draw up the budget, what information would you need to have before you on the table?
For finance, the data resources that I use are, number one, projected enrollment. It's kind of funny, but because we had a bond issue last year, we had to have a professional organization do an enrollment projection for us. And I looked at that and, where they projected our fall enrollment to be. He was only off a half a student. And, I'm looking at next year, I'm thinking, I kind of know exactly where we're going to go. And I've looked at the trends for enrollment over the last 7 years for our district. I've looked at them for years too, by the way. You lose about, almost 70 kids a year. So I expect that you're going to lose probably almost 70 kids next year. So, that's a biggie, because, when you're talking $7,000 per kid and you're losing 70 kids, that's nearly $500,000. That's an issue. So, I use enrollment projections. I use what we project our revenue to be. I'm big in contact with MSBO. I saw today on my way down that, Bob DeWan put an email out saying that now the House has a school aid budget proposal on the table. So, you have to factor in all of those things. I've already created for our school for next year, I've plugged in the numbers for using the governor's proposal, the Senate proposal, and the Classroom and Kids proposal. And when I get back, I'll do the House proposal, which kind of looks, what I'm seeing in this one email, it looks similar to the governor's. I'm not thinking it's going to be that good. But, so I use resources. I attend workshops with MSBO, try to keep current with everything that's going on, and I can call the associate director on my, I have a cell phone number, I can call him anytime and ask him, what do you think? What should I be thinking about for next year in the way of revenue? Is there anything that I'm missing? So I do use resources like that. In drawing up
curriculum.
In curriculum, you kind of maybe noticed my presentation. We use data on where our students are achievement-wise. Not only MEET, but NWEA. We use BRA, as you saw, DIBELS, all types of formative assessments along the way. And so we look at that, our curriculum pacing guides and things like that that tell us, okay, are we on our way to where we need to be? And I think there was a last part here about drawing up the budget. Chuck, could you repeat that piece?
Of course. When you sit down and draw up the budget, what information would you need to have before you on the table?
All of the numbers that I kind of talked about earlier, any new programs that maybe my principal would like to implement, what types of federal money are we expecting this year, title money, and how we want to allocate that. Are we looking at additional summer school, after school tutoring? All of these things need to have validity if I'm gonna put it in the budget, I guess. I wanna say that. If I don't want something in there that maybe historically hasn't worked. If summer school hasn't worked for high schoolers that want English 9, then maybe I don't wanna run it. But if it's a good intervention or a way to build kids up and keep the skills for next year from falling off, then I will. So student programs are important, and I need to make sure that they're working.
Thank you.
Gary, like the questions asked before me, I have a two-parter also.
Okay.
What should the relationship between the school board and the superintendent look like? And would you describe how these characteristics are evident in your position?
I have a really good relationship with my school board. I don't know if anybody has made phone calls about me, but I have the former board member listed, and I have the current one listed where you can call. And I have a good relationship. The board allows me to do my job as superintendent, and I expect that. I expect support from my board too, by the way, and things when maybe you're questioned in the community that I hope that you have trust in me. And my board, I feel, does. The board develops policy, and that's a main role of a school board, is to develop policy and hire a good superintendent. And we work together, we plan together. You have board goals. I saw those goals, and they're based on student achievement. It looks like to me, and prudent use of the resources that we have. I know there was a second part here that described something.
Your characteristics in the position you have.
Our board president runs our board meetings. I have my time to speak at board meetings, communicate, I answer questions. So when I'll have board members that receive calls from parents, and they'll direct them at me. Sometimes I'll direct them where they need to go from there, but I feel like I have a good relationship, and the board supports my position as the lead administrator in the district. It allows me, on me, I feel like, sometimes I spare the board from unnecessary evils that, you know, I don't want my board to be attacked by the community or anything like that, so do I take the fall sometimes? Yes, I do, for things that, I think we need to do. I'm not ashamed to make a recommendation that I think would help our kids.
What do you think the Board of Education plays in this relationship? What and not necessarily your board that you have now, but say you were our superintendent, how would you think the relationship would be and what we should be doing in relation to a superintendent?
Again, I'll go back to the policy, I believe is the main function of a board. If I came into this district though, you guys have a lot of knowledge that I don't have yet. You guys have been here for a long time, you're part of the community. I would rely on that heavily. And I know that when you did this search, you surveyed the community. I know that you surveyed your staff. You have a connection. I know that Andy goes and eats lunch with the staff. So, you know, there's a resource for me that, you know, I want to use. I value your input, you know, and I'll ask you, I'll say, you know, what do you think are the biggest issues I need to address once I start here? You know, you guys are going to be a valuable team for me to work with.
Good answer, thank you.
All right, everybody else had multiple part questions, mine is really short, so
This is scary.
you won't need to write anything down.
That's a long answer.
Maybe, it will be probably an in-depth answer, but we would like for you to describe for us the classroom of the future.
Well, a couple things about the classroom of the future. This is what I see. I see project-based learning being a part of that. You know, there's a whole subculture of people called makers. I don't even know if you know about it. But they build things, they design things. It might be electronic devices, it might be, you know, something technology-wise, it could be something, you know, totally different. But there is really a subculture of that. It's even something that the MIT is accepting with their applicants now. If, you know, they demonstrate that, okay, I'm a maker and I've done this and that, you know, that's something that they're looking at. A personalized curriculum or personalized learning is something that I think you're going to see more of. Learning analytics, and I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about when I say learning analytics. But what I'm talking about is the way that we do progress monitoring is going to be so automated, and the technology is going to finally catch up where we can say, okay, this is what that student needs to learn. So they're going to have what I decided to call it like an adaptive curriculum. Students will have an adaptive curriculum that adapt to their needs and their desires for what they want their future to look like. That's kind of what I see evolving, and you know, technology is getting there. I think for the time being, I see things, you know, like cloud computing. And, I see one-to-one initiatives in the mobile things, the blended learning opportunities that we're implementing now, those types of things. But in the future, you know, I see an adaptive curriculum for our students.
How far away?
It's a few years, but you know, it's going to be a incremental process to get there too. So we'll see changes here in the next 5 years.
Would the state have to implement something like that, or would you take that upon yourself?
I wouldn't wait for the state because it won't get done. It's going to get done by school districts that have vision.
So, you spoke of declining enrollment earlier. How do we remain attractive and competitive when enrollment drives the revenue?
And I don't know if area schools are stealing your kids. I'm guessing that you're probably getting as many from East China as they're getting of yours. You know, we have that going on, you know, in our district. It's the neighboring district, the one that's closest. A kid goes up there because they don't like the principal or they don't like that teacher anymore. So that's kind of why you see the movement. To market Algonac, you have a lot of good things going on. We might need to slightly improve the website to kind of market the vision a little bit more. If you're looking for what is the mission of this school district, I don't think it pops out when you go to the website right off. And I don't think it pops up, well, there are a lot of good things like the IB program, for example. The I know you have dual enrollment out, the middle college, all of those things are there, but I don't know how they're being marketed in this district. But my resources, I go to the website and I look to see what's going on because I don't live here. And what I see is that maybe we could improve that a little bit. I know your website's better than ours, but, you know, I do think that you're in a more competitive area than we are as well. I mean, our district is 358 square miles. I mean, yours is 49. So you have other schools that are much closer, and, you know, so kids can go back and forth. Where we are, it's like, there's only one place they can go besides our school, really. So, you know, but anyway, I think we market, you know, the great things that you're doing. You have to reward elementary schools. I went into, well, Andy, I saw you outside one of them today. I wanted to make sure I stopped into the one I didn't get last time, so. You know, those are good things that you have going on here. We just need to get the word out. And I don't know if you have a school sign anywhere, like an electronic sign. I think that's a good marketing tool.
Thank you.
Gary, can you describe your management style and give us some examples of where it's paid off for you and perhaps where it's not paid off for you?
You know, my management style is, I think I'm a situational leader. I kind of have a different style based on different situations. It's really odd because when I was, you know, in my specialist program and I took a leadership class, they had us do a survey to say, you know, see where you actually were. And I came out as like a transformational leader. And, you know, some of the concepts are the same as situational leadership, but as I know, being in the position that I'm in, there's times when, you know, we have collaborative discussions about the changes we need to make in our district. I empower the other staff members in my district, not only my administrators, but also my teaching staff, to make decisions and be part of the process for change. So, you know, those are some of the major characteristics I have. But are there times when I need to make a decision and, you know, I try to gather the input, but sometimes I make the decision that maybe other staff members don't disagree, but I think it's the right decision for the school district. It may be based on financial considerations, or it may be based on what I think is best for the kids. But for the most part, I think my management style was pretty collaborative.
Do you have any specific examples that you can share with us?
I have an example of one thing that I kind of made a mistake on here recently was use of nibbles and DRA. You know, DRA is new to our school district assessment. Dibbles we've been doing for a long time, and I question the value of dibbles because I don't know if we were making instructional modifications, you know, based on the data that we were receiving. And if you don't make those modifications, of course, you know, the results don't change. And so I thought, well, maybe dibbles isn't the answer. So I told my staff, I said, we're not using dibbles anymore. And then I got to thinking about it over the weekend. And I came in and I called my teaching staff together and I said, I want to apologize because I told you you're not going to use dibbles anymore, but you know what? If you want to use dibbles and you think it has value, you're the ones, you know, doing the assessment anyway. Go ahead and use dibbles. So we still use dibbles, you know, but that was one where I kind of made a decision on my own and thought, you know what, I got to backtrack on this one a little bit.
Thank you.
Gary, what is the most difficult situation you have dealt with in your professional career, and how did you handle it?
I've had two kind of difficult situations, and I'll do both of them. I'll hit on the first one because I thought it was the most difficult at the time. I had about 10 fifth graders that were involved with rock candy that was laced with marijuana. And, you know, one kid had a father who had a medical marijuana license, and the mother made rock candy with it, and this is how the dad took it, I guess, and the kid got some, and he was gonna, you know, he was telling other kids in his class about it. I said, well, bring it in, I'll try some, you know, so sure enough, he brought a bunch in, and I had, you know, they were in the boys' bathroom, and I had about 10 kids involved with that. I had the news station over there that, you know, the next night, and I had Grand Rapids Press calling me at home on the phone about that. And you know, I thought that was the biggest thing that I had they said, you know what, I didn't really lose much sleep over it or anything like that, so, you know, we did the thing, we expelled the kid for like half a year, the one that brought it, and just, did some suspensions for some of the others that, knew what they were doing. But that wasn't the biggest thing. The biggest thing I had to deal with was, releasing a teacher for, I guess what I'll say is ethical, moral reasons. And that one was a tough one, because that one I lost sleep over for several weeks. And, it was, we had an investigation, the state police was pending on that one, and it was a teacher that had done a lot in our district, wasn't quite cutting it in the classroom, and I think it's because of that. And I won't go into details, but, I will say that that's the one that grieved me the most, and I lost the most sleep over that one. So that was the most difficult thing that I had to deal with.
Was it difficult because you were close with him?
No, not necessarily that. It was, it was just that, could I have brought the guy back to teach? Probably, but it would not have worked out in our district. It just really, because we're a small community and word got out, so it was kind of a no-win situation. In my estimation, I had to do what was best for the district. And I'll tell you, this guy had relatives that worked in our district too. So that made it doubly hard to do this.
Can you give us some examples of how you might develop some innovative business partnerships and tell us about some specific grant applications you have submitted over the last 3 years? And how was your level of success?
Business partnerships, our school district does a lot with economic development council. And through that partnership, we have several small businesses, manufacturing firms, machine tool shops, if you want to call them that. So we've developed partnerships with them. There's actually a company in Onaway, which, that's probably at least an hour, 15 minutes from our school. But we have a partnership with that corporation. This is a big steel corporation. They make big products. They make stuff for ships, Great Lakes ships and things like that. We have a metals program in our school, so they like our school. They donate welding equipment to us. They actually put up a shelter outside of our shop for welding. They donated the steel for that. And we just put a little roof over it and those plastic wall things so kids could go outside in the winter or in the rain and they could still weld. And that was because of Oregon Iron Works. Like I said, we had a lot of smaller partnerships with tool shops in our community. The next piece was grant writing. I've not written grants in the last few years. With my role in the school changing from being strictly superintendent to a superintendent, business manager, elementary principal, I've not had time to do that, Tim. Do I have a record of success in the past? Yes, I have. I'm still involved with the Universal Service Fund, the SLC, which is discounts for technology for schools and things like that. But I haven't written any new grants. We're looking at some right now. I had Congressman Benachek, who's our U.S. representative for our district up north. He was in our building last week, and he was touring our vocational education facility, our industrial arts program, looking at that. And he says, you know what, we need to get you some money. And so he suggested, we contact his aid, do some grant writing there. The last 3 years, I haven't really done a lot. In the past, I have, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the Technology Literacy Challenge grant was still something that was a competitive grant, I wrote a grant for that, got $248,500. That was the largest grant I've ever written, and we received money. After that, and we're a small district, so that did a lot for us technology-wise. Some of the innovative things I did is that, about 6 years ago, I think, I read something from the Department of Ed that, you know, schools are not using all of the grant money they have received. I thought, you know what? I'm gonna call down to the Department of Ed and say, if they're not using it, we'll use it. And I did. And I called down there and, I can't remember if I talked to you, but I said, you know what, we'll use this money. Well, what will you use it for? I told them. And we ended up getting a check for $30,000. It's not a lot of money, but $30,000 from Calhoun ISD, because we're using it. And, you know, so you know, I do try. Have I actually written some large grants in the last few years? No, I haven't.
The business development, was the business that was developed with the steel company that contributes to your school, was that developed by you, or was that in place already when you got there?
And it was not in place when I got there. It was developed by mainly our high school principal, who is a former shop teacher, and he brought the guy down and he toured our school and everything. And so we've had conversations, but I can't take credit for that. That's, you know, that's something that's happened on my watch. And, you know, like I said, we have a partnership with this guy, and he's done a lot of great things for us. So we really appreciate it. But I'll give credit to Mr. Gendronalik on that one.
Gary, Chuck again. What is your philosophy and position concerning schools of choice? Do you have experience in this area? And is your district presently engaged in schools of choice?
Yeah, Chuck, we are presently engaged in schools of choice. Do we actively market our school to take students away from other schools? We don't. You know, mainly because of our geographic boundaries are so large, like 358 square miles. I had a chance at the beginning of this year, West Branch Road City Schools, our neighbor to the south, we're having a lot of problems. I don't know if you watch Bill O'Reilly, but they've been on there, and I thought, well, here's a chance where I could steal some of their kids, but I didn't do it because I didn't think it was the right thing to do. They had some anger in the community, and I thought they needed to work through that. And, you know, it's my opinion, you know, I'm an educator. I want to do what's best for kids. It doesn't matter if the kids are in my district or in another district. We have kids from a neighboring district that come over to our place to take AP classes because they don't offer them in their district. I don't even charge them the full amount of state aid that, you know, I could. So I value partnerships more than taking students away from other school districts. I kind of hope that's the way it is down here too, because we're all in this together to educate students in Michigan, and I don't want to be somebody that's known to steal kids from other districts.
Thank you.
Gary, you mentioned some curriculum initiatives that you had developed. I think you were mentioning in the presentation. But could you refresh our memory a little bit on what you've implemented that would boost student achievement?
Curriculum-wise? Well, a couple of things, and let me start at the lowest level and work up. We have a Great Start program in our building now. That's new. This is the second year they've been in it, so this is under my watch. I begged to get it in there, and they finally put it in there. So I feel that from the get-go, having those 4-year-olds in our building is going to be beneficial to us. They're right next to our kindergarten class. They see me in the hallway. They see kindergarten teachers and other early elementary staff down there. So, you know, it's like they're part of our building, and I think that's valuable. And we have Head Start and things that are not in our building. I have my kindergarten teachers go visit those places too. And, you know, we have a good partnership with our, as a matter of fact, our school board president works for Head Start. So, you know, we have a really good relationship. In kindergarten, we've implemented a 2-week summer school for students that are entering our kindergarten that is targeting students that will probably struggle at the beginning of kindergarten. We've used data from Head Start and Great Start and our kindergarten roundups to identify what students should participate in this program. And we want these kids to get a good fresh start in our building. we have title support in our early elementary, and, you know, a couple years ago, I said, I want to really get to early L. So we've been addressing that. We have a partnership with our county literacy council that has trained tutors. They usually work with adults, but I have them come into our building and they work with first and second graders. So, and I think I mentioned last week that our student achievement, because we check it, you know, we say, here's the kids you're working with. We track all of our students. What interventions are they receiving? Are they working? And the kids that were worked with by these tutors from our literacy council, not our teachers, but, you know, tutors from our community, they had some pretty good student achievement. The results were showing that they were doing that. As I move up the ladder here, I mentioned flexible grouping that we're doing for math in grades 3 through 5. So I won't talk about that again, but that's been highly successful. We have a targeted assistance program in our middle school, and that wasn't always there. It used to be in our district that none of the title money went to the middle school or high school. It all was in the elementary. But we changed that. And we said, you know what, we're going to, you know, put a targeted Title I teacher in our middle school. And primarily they're working with in math, because that was the need that we had. And we see results. I mean, we have tutoring almost every day after school. We have that extra support of a title teacher. We do a lot of things that you do. We call them by different names. You know, you call them bonus hour, and you know, we might call them supplemental math or something like that, or you call it seminar, we call it academic support. But we do a lot of things like that with our middle school. And again, you know, by looking at the results from our meet, we see that that's the kids that are worked with are showing the greatest growth. So we think they're working.
How receptive is your community with you doing that with those kids?
Very, you know, very receptive. If we're working with kids, they're happy. They like the extra attention. You know, they all, Title I, have to have the parent contact that, you know, has to be signed and everything like that. And I think they're thrilled with the after-school tutoring, the extra help that they're getting. Sometimes the kids aren't so happy when, you know, they might not get an elective, but they're taking another bonus math class or, you know, another supplemental math class or something like that.
What are the costs associated with those tutors?
Well, that's part of the title program, so it's the cost of the teacher. And if tutoring after school, you know, we pay our teachers an hourly rate, and it's like $21 an hour right now for that extra hour of tutoring after school.
What about your 2 weeks in the summer for the pre-kindergarten?
That was part of our title program too.
Oh, that was part of the title too? Okay.
And if you want me to mention a little bit about high school, I can. I won't go into great detail. I just want you to know that, you know, it isn't like we just have college prep and we're, you know, working with these kids. I mentioned vocational ed. We try to have a diverse curriculum for all of our students because, you know, we have different needs. We have students that we even go, you know, to construction trade or something like that. We have students that go over to career tech and they might be in a medical field or something like that. So we do try to address the diverse kids that we have with a diverse curriculum.
Thank you.
I believe you just answered my next question. I was wanting to ask what type of curriculum monitoring or development process should be in place that would ensure that the curriculum meets the needs of students who might not be on the college path track?
And all of those things. And, you know, you see a lot of like online learning now. We have a lot of students that are, you know, taking dual enrolled classes online through our community college or Michigan Virtual University. We've also partnered with Crawford DeSable School District in Suttons Bay for an online school opportunity, which could be for anyone that lives in our school district. You know, an example would be elementary student that's homeschooled. If they want to take part in this online school, they can. And we have the flexibility as a school district to say they're going to be part of Iowa DeSable, or they're going to be part of Suttons Bay or Crawford DeSable, who kind of, you know, say we'll take all of them, you know, because they set up the school code and Department of Ed and everything. But so we have that partnership. Example here might be, and this is what Superintendent Powers told me from Crawford DeSable. They had a student that was homeschooled all the way through, you know, 10th grade. They got into this online school, and so they became part of Crawford DeSable school, but they didn't come into the school. And then, you know, they thought, you know what, I want to take a performing arts class. So they came in and they took just that 1 hour performing arts class. And then the next year they thought, you know what, I made some friends here. Now the kid's enrolled in their school, so he's part of their school. So it's a win-win for kids and school districts.
Gary, this will be your last question for today. We're coming into more, I'm going to say, socioeconomic environment in our district here. And what teaching methods or programs should be in place to improve student performance for students who come from a lower socioeconomic environment?
Now, I want you to know that your freedom use rate's around 45%. Ours is like 67.9. That's the type of kids that we work with in Iowa. All of the things that I talked about address those needs. But a step further, I had thought I lost it here when we were talking. Just repeat your question, I'll probably gain it back.
Social economic environment that we're in, you're in one probably a little bit worse than ours. It seems very difficult to try to get those kids up to par to be able to meet the state standards, and somewhere along the line, districts have to.
It is, and I know one of the things that you're looking at is year-round school, and I want to tell you that I just read an article the other day about student drop in mathematics. And I'll be more specific. It's a study by Duke University, and students lose over the summer mathematical computation skills of 2.6 months. And that's not just at-risk students, that's all students lose that. So that's like saying that, all right, here we are at the end of March. We have 2.6 months left in the school year. So you might want to move those kids right now into, if they're in 3rd grade, move into 4th grade. I mean, there's that retention loss that they suffer. I watched the video that you guys had on your website about year-round school, and I saw that, the kids moving and, going back, and the visual graphic was really good. And when I came down, I talked to Brian a little bit, and he was showing me around the schools, and, he said, I don't know if that's gonna go in our community. I said, yeah, if it doesn't, we probably need to address it anyway, somehow, with either summer school or more students, or some other way. You can't continue that, we can't continue that. We can't continue to have kids lose that for such a long period, fall behind. So that's something we need to address. And like I say, in our district, we do have summer school. But, we have title money. And you might not have the title money proportionally that we do. So we can offer things like that. We do have the after-school tutoring. And, pretty much if you're a student in our middle school and you want after-school tutoring, you can stay any day of the week except Friday. Monday through Thursday, you have tutoring. If you need to go to summer school, you can pretty much go. So those are ways that we address it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and we did pretty good on our time even, so very good, thank you.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and visit you again. Like I said last time, I think this is an outstanding school district. I'm happy to be part of it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. I shot you.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming.